All right, coming up on 2 o'clock, and we're joined once again with meteorologist Jacob Morse. Welcome. Well, today is the big day, Jacob. Are you
It's
excited?
it's documentary day. I
It
am
is.
pumped. It's been a long road, a lot of work to get to this point, and now finally get to premiere this and get to show it to everyone. Really excited.
Got me thinking. So, are you open to doing some more long form videos on weather abnormalities, or just really, it doesn't even have to be an abnormality, just any type of weather coincidence that happens down
Oh,
the
I'd
road?
I'd love to do that. It's kind of what I do with Morse Code of Weather
Sure.
on the 4 o'clock news every Wednesday. A little bit more of a longer format, five,
Yep.
6 minutes in length, go more in depth. Obviously, 1 hour documentary is a few notches up from that, but I do love the video editing process and putting all of this together. Maybe some more happening down the road. We'll have to see.
Okay, it'll be interesting to see again tonight. You can catch it right here on KFYR Plus, starting at 6:30, right after your local newscast. Make sure you switch over right here, and of course, I think you can even watch the KFYR Plus news right here on the news app as well. Okay, so let's get to the title of it is Summer of Tornadoes. We've been talking about it quite a bit here over the last few days, about a week and a half or so. Give the viewers, in case they missed it, kind of a quick synopsis of what the documentary again is tonight.
Yeah, it's a full summary of all 82 tornadoes that happened last year in North Dakota, and that is a new record for the most number of tornadoes in a calendar year in North Dakota history, shattering the prior record of 61 from 1999. So more than triple what's normal and more than 20 tornadoes more than the prior record. So just incredible how abnormal the year was last year with all of those tornado outbreaks. And we go in chronological order through the 1 hour documentary, starting with June 19th, when there was a tornado near Dickinson and South Hart. And then the June 20th outbreak, there's more than 30 minutes of the documentary is focused on that because that day had 24 tornadoes, tied for the most in North Dakota history in one day. And we look at specifically the Spiritwood EF3 tornado and the Enderlin EF5 tornadoes from that June 20th day. Then we move on to the June 27th tornadoes. The following Friday, we had tornadoes in North Bismarck. And finally, we wrap up the documentary focusing on the September outbreak of tornadoes, late season outbreak of 20 tornadoes on September 14th of last year. So with each of those parts of the documentary, we go into the science behind what caused those tornadoes and hear from real people that were impacted and their lives were changed because the tornadoes impacted their properties. And in the Enderlin case, the one person that's included in the documentary, Tyler, his aunt and uncle were tragically killed next door by that EF5 tornado.
Well, that leads to a nice segue into, you've got some great sound bites here, starting with the Spiritwood tornado. You want to set this up?
Yeah, so I'm going to show you a few snippets of the documentary. A minute or two in length, just to show you how kind of immersive of an experience this is going to be, because there's some music on the under track of the documentary, and there's some really intense storm chaser footage. And this might be some of the best storm chaser footage was from the Spiritwood tornado forming on June 20th. Ryan and Eric and Shane were able to get right up close to see that tornado genesis process, and it's really, really scary but fascinating.
Okay.
We had the very rare opportunity to just troll along I-94 and pull over, get some film, go a little more, pull over. I honestly thought it was going to throw down right along the interstate there, and we could just see it. It was like right there. I was like, oh, this is it, this is it. No, not quite. It was so close, so close, so close. We were just outside of Spiritwood. I made a decision, let's just go north a little bit because I can see a collar cloud and it's moving. And the collar cloud is like, for people that don't know, it's like the collar cloud, the wall cloud, and then, you know, the tornado. If the collar cloud is whipping, that thing is imminent. It is about to throw, like right now.
One of the things is when the wall cloud was initially starting to develop. I've seen a lot of tornadoes and a lot of storms over the years, and with that system, I just took a look at it and I said to myself, this thing's going to produce. There's so much spin in the atmosphere. The wall cloud was hugging the ground and just sucking up scud from the farm fields. That's a sign of we have a very strong inflow into this storm. We have a lot of strong lift. We have a lot of spin because that entire wall cloud was spinning like a top. And that was where I had to kind of settle myself down going, okay, this is going to happen.
We're sitting there and we can see the wall cloud of the spirit, what would become the Spiritwood tornado.
We saw a little rope funnel come down. I just pulled over real quick and got out. It ascended, but then it started to really like take that cone form, and I got to just park my camera right out there and get the first genesis of what came out to be a large wedge tornado.
Okay, that's some pretty powerful video. One thing that I got out of that, Jacob, and I'm sure you'll talk about it, I know you do talk about it, is my recollection of the June 27th tornado, which was in North Bismarck, it was a sunny evening.
Sure.
Nice night, calm if I remember correctly, and all of a sudden you saw this big patch of dark clouds that came in, moved over top of us, right? But it was still sunny on parts of the city, but over top of the north side of town, it was like not quite that dark, but it got pretty dark, right? That's scary when you look at those. It's all PTSD when you see something like that.
It takes some, I guess, confidence or some ways of knowing what to do as a storm chaser to be in the right position but not be reckless and put yourself in a too dangerous of a spot. Because obviously it's very dangerous driving as close to the start of a tornado like we saw there with Spiritwood. But they know what they're doing, and I'm very grateful for them sharing that footage with me to see that process of the EF3 tornado, what it would become in its infancy and in its formation process as it's pulling in those dark clouds, the amount of spin in the atmosphere that we also saw on June 27th with Bismarck. But to see that powerful of a tornado, EF3 is pretty high on the scale, forming right along I-94 as these storm chasers are parked along, getting that footage. To include that in the documentary, pretty powerful.
It is pretty powerful. Next, we've got Carla's story.
Yeah, so she was impacted by this EF3 tornado. Her family's farm, she doesn't live on the farm anymore, but her mom was there. She was visiting, just so happened to be there on June 20th of last year, and her mom took shelter. And once they came up from the basement, they saw the devastation that was left behind.
After things started moving around outside, you could hear things hitting the house. And so I'm like, maybe we should get in the shower. And so we got into the bathroom and into the shower, which is all cinder block shower. And we hid out in there. And it was scary because you didn't know, as you're standing there, what we were going to walk up the stairs to find. We had no clue what was happening above us. And it was just the wind. It just growled, not like the freight train noise that you hear, but it did just growl, and the noise of things hitting the house was scary. It felt like an eternity, and yet it was over within just minutes. And that was probably what was scariest, is because, like I said, you're downstairs, you don't know what's going on, and you are anticipating the best, but you know that you know what's going on. And so when we went upstairs, then after things seemed to calm down, we looked down across the yard, and we had a pig barn that housed about 2,000 hogs at one time. We haven't been in that business for a long time, but it was mostly gone. The grain bin's gone. We had a dryer shed, it was gone. Our old feed shed was gone. And it was like there was debris, but where those buildings specifically sat, nothing. You couldn't even tell there was a building there. It was just a cement slab. It was kind of freaky, really, Eerie, maybe is the better word.
Scary stuff. I mean, to be in something like that,
And see the damage that
to
can
see
be
the damage
left behind
afterwards, and to see her family was lucky. I mean, she, and along with her mom and the family, you said the home was spared. The outbuildings were gone, but the home was spared.
Yeah, she was fortunate in that regard. Her neighbor's home was completely destroyed, but they were okay as well. Just goes to show you how quickly things can change with a tornado coming over your location and your whole livelihood with those farm buildings being wiped clean with just cement slabs left.
When you think of something like that, maybe for instance the Spirit Wood tornado, how wide of a swath did it get?
I believe it was between a half mile and a mile wide.
That
Probably
is
closer to a half mile wide.
simply amazing that it took the outbuildings, but yet it was just in the very edge that it left the home.
Right. And you saw with some of that storm chaser footage just the width of the tornado.
Yes.
And the power that was contained in terms of the wind speeds, greater than 150 miles per hour. And as it tracked along, it got wrapped in rain, so it was really hard to see. But just incredible, the swath of damage that was caused by it. And it kind of arced around the center of Spirit Wood, and Carla's family's farm is to the northeast. And a lot of the outbuildings, as you saw, were completely destroyed, and some of that debris was carried miles away.
When you distinguish between Category 3 or EF3, EF4, EF5 tornadoes, does it get wider at the base, the
Not
higher
necessarily.
number, or does it matter at
It's
all?
just based on the wind speeds.
Just wind.
The
It doesn't matter.
estimated wind speeds based on the damage. So the Weather Service went out, probably to Carla's farm and to all the other farms that were impacted in that area, looked at the damage, and then said, this is the wind speed that probably caused that level of damage. And based on that, they assigned that EF3 rating. Nothing to do with the width of the tornado or even how long it's on the ground for, just what the maximum estimated wind speed is based on the worst damage along that path.
Okay. Yeah, simply amazing. Also, another question. A lot of times, videos that we see, it's the tornado's cone-shaped.
Sure.
What do you call those long, skinny tornadoes that come down? They look like, I don't know what you would call it.
Like a noodle, right?
Like a noodle, right?
Yeah,
It's very
yeah.
skinny. Is that another term? I mean, it's a tornado, right? But is there
Right.
a different term of a tornado that is or no?
There are different names for the different shapes. The Spirit Wood tornado, big cone tornado, even wedge tornado,
Wedge,
since
sure.
it's so large and so wide. Those Bismarck tornadoes that we'll get to a little bit later on here, a couple minutes from now, those were kind of like that noodle
Yes.
shape. That's not the technical term. I don't know that off
Okay.
the top of my head, but
Stumped them.
yeah,
Got them.
There's an interesting soundbite that we'll get to about the shape of those Bismarck tornadoes that I think you're referring to a little bit later.
Perfect. Okay. Next,
But-
we've got
Talking still about the Spirit Wood tornado.
Spirit Wood. This is Hovda's?
Yes, the Hovda's family home was destroyed, and they were there in the basement as well. Michael Anthony caught up with them shortly after the tornado last summer, and this is where most of those sound bites are from, but I think it's a story worth retelling for this documentary.
Okay.
Another Spirit Wood family impacted was the Hovdas, who also took shelter in their basement bathroom, put the kids in the bathtub, and used their bodies to barricade the door.
Very scary, hearing the windows blow open and everything crashing down, and we were all trying to hold the door shut.
I was just waiting for us to all be sucked up. That was my only thought, was these are our last moments together. That's all I kept thinking.
Even though everything in their home was lost, Crystal is thankful her husband and children survived.
The following days, we said we could be planning a funeral right now, and we're not. Things can be replaced, people can't. So we're very, very blessed in that.
Community support will help the Hovdas rebuild and move forward with a newfound respect for the power of tornadoes that Carla also shares.
Don't mistaken the wrath of what Mother Nature can do. And I think that's a big one that came out of this. After the storm, any other time that there was a, level 1 or level 2 that popped up, not gonna lie, a little PTSD. Things that would be going on, I'd be like, I need to get home, I need to get my car in the garage, and I need to get someplace safe. And it was probably just, just a small thunderstorm coming through. But that's where your mind goes, because you don't wanna live it again. And so you think the worst and you prepare for it just because you've been there. And I think that's probably what I don't take for granted anymore. So the weather, definitely am paying attention.
All right, some very powerful video there of the Hovdas in their home.
And a great perspective from Carla there too about the fact that you got to take the weather seriously, because even those more minor days with severe weather events possible, you got to know what your plan is to take shelter if that tornado warning's coming to you. And having that perspective from Carla and the Hovdas of being directly impacted by a very powerful tornado. Hopefully no one is impacted. Obviously, tornadoes have a somewhat narrow path or swath of damage, not impacting counties. We're talking about a few miles width, which is still a significant area, but hopefully you're not the ones that are impacted, but you have to have that plan in place in case you end up in a situation like Carla or the Hovdas, so that you can stay safe. And it's fortunate that both of them made it out alive, and very thankful for that.
The next one we're going to get to, this is Tyler from Enderlin, right?
Yes. So this is him talking about, again, seeking shelter in his basement as that EF5 Enderlin tornado was bearing down on his home. He was there with his wife, and then next door was his aunt and uncle.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember seeing videos. Was Tyler the one who had the videos that were circulating on social media? Or do you know if that's right? Maybe not.
Of the home damage?
No, the Enderlin tornado that was coming. It was at night.
He did not get any video of the tornado itself. He said at one point during the interview that he could maybe see it within the lightning flashes, because this is at 11 o'clock at night on June 20th. And the reason he knew it was coming was because he was watching Valley News Live, and he was getting alerts on his phone that a tornado was on its way. You're in extreme danger, is what the alert said.
Yes.
And he lost cell phone service because it was coming from the south and hit the cell phone tower that he usually sees to the south of his property.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, there's some storm tracer footage of the Enderlin tornado.
Amazing video of that. I remember seeing that a day or so later. It was
some of that is included in the documentary, not in this clip specifically.
Okay. Perfect. Here's Tyler.
We need to get in the bathroom because something's off, So we ran into the bathroom. I was like, never had that happen. And then when we got in the bathroom, we could feel the pressure in our ears more. Stuff started hitting our house. All I could hear was just this, and I was like, it sounded like the roof. And then it was kind of over. I actually did say to my wife, so I was pretty sure it was a tornado. I was like, we just survived a tornado, and because it was like, holy, we're alive. And then walked out, and the roof was gone, and trees and everything were all messed up, and cars were gone. And my wife's Camaro flew up against that electric post. I had a Ranger there, flew a quarter mile away. It was frantic.
Us responding down to the Enderlin area, where it was reported that a house was experiencing a gas leak and that the roof had come off of the residence. So that's what we were initially responding to.
We went to the first house, and the individual's roof was completely gone. They were both outside, they were okay. And at that point we realized that their neighbor, just to the east, their house was gone.
Those neighbors were Tyler Pfaff's aunt and uncle.
Standing down there, I could see their vehicles. So I didn't think really anything happened over there, because the vehicles were still parked where they were. And then he drove over there. They're like, where's the house? Where's the house? And I was like, well, it's up here. It's up here. And then we got up there, and it was gone, to the foundation. So then I got out of the car and yelled down into the basement. Well, there was no reply. So I don't know. It was just one of those things where it was like, obviously they're gone, In my mind, that was the first thing in my mind, because they didn't answer. It's going to be tough, but I have such good memories of my aunt and uncle.
All right, two things on that, Jacob. So one being the devastation. Tell the viewers, and you've told us the first day when we got together here, that generally you judge a tornado, the EF size, after the damage has been done. It's not something that is done by you the night of or when it's happening. You know, this is an EF5. I have seen, not you guys, meaning KFYR meteorologists, but I have seen other meteorologists say, this is an EF4 coming down. But that's not how you do it. Tell the viewers how actually it is determined, the size of tornadoes.
Yeah, so the rating's based on the damage after the fact, and in the documentary we'll go into the process that went into rating this Enderlin tornado, because it was quite fascinating how the National Weather Service initially said it was EF3, but then they went back, looked at Tyler's home and some of the other properties to the east of Enderlin, said that damage was actually EF4, just based on the level of devastation and the estimated wind speeds that they thought it would have taken to cause that level of damage. And then the EF5 rating came from a train derailment to the south of town, and that is where several train cars were hurled hundreds of yards from the tornado, direct impact to this train. And those grain cars and tanker cars were taken off the track. So they looked at all of that damage with kind of a forensic approach in the months after it struck to then upgrade it to that EF5 rating based on the damage that was done. And they used some new and cutting-edge research to have that train as a damage indicator, because that hadn't been done previously. So looking the day of, on radar, we could see this was going to be a serious situation for Enderlin, that a tornado was on the ground and that it was doing damage, but we didn't have a way of knowing what its strength was. There's some ways to do it with some new research based on the amount of debris that is lofted. You can look at that on radar the day of the tornado as it's occurring, and based on the height that the debris is lofted, you might be able to get a rough estimate for the rating, but kind of that research, still some stuff that needs to be kind of figured out. And it's really based on the damage that's done after the fact.
So real time is somewhat of a guess.
Yeah.
Educated guess.
Correct. And kind of new research that's coming out. That's why some meteorologists are able to do that. And where the tornado is happening closer to the radar site, you can see that debris being lofted better. The Enderlin area is kind of in between the Aberdeen radar site and the Grand Forks radar site, so there's not great low-level information there for seeing if there was any debris being lofted.
Okay.
We were able to see there was definitely rotation there to cause the tornado, but you kind of need to be closer to the radar site to get more of that data to possibly estimate what the rating would be as it's occurring.
Number two, also, you had Johnner from, was it Fargo Police or Cass County?
Sheriff.
Cass County Sheriff. So I've seen many videos where you actually have first responders, well, generally it's county deputies or highway patrolmen that are actually following the tornado or scouting on it. Is that something that happened with this Enderlin tornado? Do you know?
I don't believe so. They didn't talk about it in their interviews.
At night.
It's at night. It's really dangerous.
So it's probably more dangerous than the daytime.
Correct.
I've seen daytime
Right,
video.
yeah. Well, they'll like block off roads
yes,
so that people don't drive into the
and they'll
path.
phone it into emergency services. Hey, it's heading this direction.
Yep. And those are really helpful reports for the Weather Service so that they know the tornado's still on the ground.
Yep.
But with this specific case, since it was completely dark,
at dark,
such
you
a
can't.
powerful
Okay,
tornado,
I was just wondering.
I think they were kind of following it afterwards so that they could get to Tyler's property, because they got the phone call from him or someone else that there was a gas leak there. There was a lot of damage, and just to check out, make sure they're okay. And then they went over to his aunt and uncle's house, and he shared that really heartbreaking story that'll be expanded upon in the documentary.
Again, tonight, 6:30, right after local news. You can watch it right here on KFYR Plus. Now we get to the Bismarck tornadoes. I remember these vividly, very well. What can you tell us to set up this clip?
Yeah, so we're going to be looking at some of the Sky Spy photo footage that we got in from all of our viewers, which we appreciate because it was such a visible tornado.
It was.
It happened on the south side of the supercell that came just to the north of town. If you were outside, you probably saw it if you were looking to the north. People even down by the airport could see it, and from Lincoln, where you saw some photos from that perspective. So talking about how that tornado formed, its shape, we'll go into that as we mentioned earlier, and the people that just watched that form and the damage that it caused.
Okay.
All right, everybody, greetings once again with you with meteorologist Jacob Morse. I'm meteorologist Kevin Lawrence, tracking tornadoes. They are confirmed.
These back-to-back tornadoes touched down about 7 miles north of downtown Bismarck near 110th Avenue, with one of them doing damage to a property. This was the first time a tornado had come this close to the city limits in about 20 years.
It was crazy, and to witness nature's power so directly was just fascinating to see. The way the clouds moved with the swirling, the electricity just constant within the sky, and then just to actually see a tornado move around and just witness how fast they move. I think that was the biggest thing for us, just how fast it was.
One of the reasons those tornadoes were so visible from Bismarck is they formed on the south side of the supercell thunderstorm. And so that's a typical area where that really warm, unstable air reaches into the supercell. The whole storm is rotating, but the tornadoes very frequently form on the south side near the hook echo of those supercells. On June 27th, those supercells were just north of Bismarck, which meant that the hook echo region was just north of Bismarck, and the tornado that occurred in that particular region of the storm, highly visible from Bismarck. Now, the exact shape of the tornadoes is an area of more research probably needed, but the low-level parts of the wind shear, again, probably played some role in exactly the shape of those tornadoes.
Okay, well, as that's bringing back some memories. I was in North Bismarck. I was telling Jacob off air here that brings back a lot of memories. I remember a lot of that tornado because I could see lightning flash and you could see the silhouette of the tornado itself.
Because it was getting dark. Oh. And you mentioned...
I couldn't tell if it was going east, north, or south, because it wasn't moving.
It was kind of stationary there for a bit.
It felt like for a few minutes, it felt like it was. So to me, what that means, Jacob, if it's not going this way, and it's not going this way, it's got to north or south.
Coming at you.
Yeah, it's got to be coming at me, right?
You're told.
That's what I'm feeling.
Yeah, as a storm chaser, that's what they remember, is that if the tornado looks stationary, it might be coming right at you. So fortunately, this tornado wasn't a half mile or a mile wide like the Spiritwood or Enderlin tornadoes, but it was rated EF1 because it did do damage up by 110th Avenue to one property. And it was actually 2 tornadoes that touched down kind of back to back there, and some really interesting shapes to those tornadoes because they were pretty skinny and kind of danced around in the North Bismarck sky there for a bit. And obviously, you saw at the beginning of that clip, Kevin and I were on the air. A lot of people watched us and were able to take shelter, use their tornado plan to get into their safe place in case it did come to the south, closer to the city and closer to the main population center. But fortunately, it just skirted by on the north side of town. But that's what we can see kind of on radar, where that storm itself, the supercell with the rotation and the rain, where that's tracking. It's kind of on an east-southeast trajectory. So it wasn't going to dive south towards the city, but it was scary close to most of the population, which hasn't happened for a tornado to be that close to Bismarck in more than 20 years.
You did say that Grand Forks did have one coming into their city this last summer, right?
Back on August 8th, early morning hours, also at night, but even more so when people are asleep at like 2, 3, 4 a.m. Also rated EF1 as it kind of did discontinuous damage throughout the city, so it kind of touched down, lifted, touched down again, but mostly tree damage, some property damage in terms of buildings there.
What causes that tornado to touch down, suck back up into the clouds, and then come back down? Is it just the atmosphere that it's in?
Just based on how that rotation is concentrated, and if it's not strong enough or there's not enough moisture to create a wide enough tornado, it'll be fairly skinny, and then as it's interacting with terrain or even some buildings on the ground, that can cause the suction and the really fast spin of those strong winds near the ground to weaken a bit, but then tighten back up and come back down.
One more about the Bismarck tornado on the 27th of June last year. Did that tornado form in Morton County and cross the river?
Nope, it just formed and did not have that long of a track. So it was fairly stationary for its entirety. Kind of came down and stayed within about a mile or two. There were tornadoes back towards Oliver County and Morton County earlier in the evening from a different thunderstorm cell. So that thunderstorm cell dropped a tornado near Center and Hanover, and then near Sweetbriar Lake. Both were very weak, but then that cell did not produce a tornado earlier in the evening as it tracked through North Bismarck. It was the second thunderstorm cell that came through and produced those 2 tornadoes in North Bismarck, but they formed right there on the north side of the city before lifting. But then that cell produced more tornadoes towards Menokin and McKenzie later on in the evening. So
you hear that, folks? We're getting ready for another summer. We don't know what's going to bring.
It was a wild night. Those were 2 back-to-back Fridays, and the June 27th date was in the midst of McQuaid's weekend.
So you had a lot of people camping and, softball, and there was a lot of people new in town, so it was a pretty wild experience. Finally, we get to the end of summer. This is September 14. This is on the edge of tornado season, right? I mean, we should be wrapping up tornado season by this time.
I believe we only see 2% of all tornadoes going back in history throughout North Dakota in September. Just 2%. Usually the vast majority are in June and July and somewhat in August. So this was very late in the season to get this caliber of an outbreak. 20 tornadoes in one day. And we'll look at some of that footage that was captured by storm chasers following.
One area would just start to really tighten and swirl, but then there would be another area right behind it that was waiting its turn. That would go down, the next one would come in. It was a lot of chaos.
Went to Driscoll. There was a storm starting to form just south of Driscoll, and then it started working its way north. I just sat there, let it come over me, and all of a sudden, here comes roaring over the shelter belt. It goes right over where the spot where I was. I'm like, okay, well, that's a great way to start the day. So I fallen behind that one, and it faded away about 2 minutes later. Stayed behind the cell, and then it put another one down by Arena. And that one was a big tornado right there for a while. Then it lifted again, kept working its way north towards Denhoff, lowered another one down, went across a pond. Then it kept going all the way up, and all of a sudden it lowered down, and that's when it became the big wedge that went just south of Denhoff and went through that farmstead right there. That's always a thing as a storm chaser you don't want to see. You never really want to ever see a tornado hit a house or hit anything. You just be out in the middle of the country, just going along, doing its thing, not hitting a house or anything like that. That's pretty much always one thing I always worry about when I'm out and about, is seeing someone's place getting hit, because I seen that on September 14th. I seen that one farmhouse, the roof fly up in the air.
That tornado was rated EF2 with another EF1 tornado near Mercer.
Well, I just hope that was an anomaly and it doesn't happen again. September, as you mentioned, 2% of total tornadoes over the course of history.
Right.
We get in September, and you had 20.
In one day.
One day in September.
And there were, at times that day, were multiple tornadoes that were on the ground at once. And some of them did damage, especially around the Denhoff, Mercer area, with a couple of properties. And some of those tornadoes turned out to be fairly big, as you saw in the footage. Some were skinny, but the parameters for that day didn't really show up until the day of. It was a little bit of a September surprise, keeping us on our toes that the tornado season wasn't done yet. And there was a lot of spin in the atmosphere that day. Not a lot of hail or lightning. It was just tornadoes caused by a really compact area of low pressure, a lot of spin to create that really concentration of strong winds near the ground within that tornado.
Is hail a precursor to what we could see, for a tornado? Is that something like...
Usually, yes. Within a supercell, big thunderstorm, it produces hail, has strong winds, and then a tornado on the south side of that cell in a kind of hook echo region, what we call it, where we can identify where that small-scale tornado would be compared to the larger area of rain and hail to the north in that supercell. So usually there's a strong enough updraft, so enough rising air, warm enough air, moist enough air to get into those tall thunderstorm clouds where it's below freezing, even in the summertime, way up high, and then those raindrops freeze into hailstones, and then we get large hail to form. If the updraft is strong enough, usually that's a precursor to getting a tornado to form as well. And when you have those strong enough updrafts, you get large hail as well. But there's some unknown still about how tornadoes specifically form. It's still a little bit of a mystery as to exactly what really localized parameters come together right near the ground to cause that spin aloft to touch down with the ground surface, and how that spin stretches and increases in speed is really interesting and cutting-edge research. But usually we see hail with tornadoes on the same day in the same storm. September was an anomaly in many regards, and in that case it was really just tornado reports, and that's it. And fortunately, a lot of them were on the weaker side, did not do any damage, but a few did, and we'll talk about all of those tornadoes in the documentary.
Again, 6:30 tonight. Catch it right here on KFYR Plus. We're going to let you go with this, Jacob. After everything that you've studied and experienced last summer, has it changed the way you do your job now?
It definitely given me a newfound respect for the power of tornadoes that we can get in North Dakota. I would have thought North Dakota would be a lot lower on the list for getting an EF5 tornado, the first in the country in more than 12 years. I would have thought it would have been Alabama or Oklahoma seeing another EF5 tornado at that highest level on the scale. So for North Dakota to get that it is possible to get tornadoes that are that strong, not only the EF5 tornado in Enderlin, but the EF3 tornado in Spiritwood, and just seeing the footage of how big that tornado was, just a stark reminder of the fact that, yes, tornadoes can come through parts of North Dakota with that severity and change lives, and tornadoes can come close to cities. There's not a bubble around us.
No.
We can be impacted in major metropolitan areas, so you need to have those plans in place, and I think it'll just allow me to do my job better in keeping people safe and prepared, knowing that we can have this extreme of a year for tornadoes. Hopefully it never happens again. Hopefully that 82 tornado mark for 2025 stands as the most we'll ever see in a year. But as we move forward, only time will tell if we can match or exceed that mark again. But it will have to be another extreme year like we saw last year.
Yes. You're telling me it was very extreme for many of us.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I was only involved in the June 27, but that's just one chapter of the book that we had to tell last summer. And we'll find out as we head into, and essentially we're in it right now, aren't we?
Getting
tornado
into it,
season. I mean, I'm guessing it's got to be starting mid-month or maybe toward the end of May.
Exactly.
When we'll start.
And that's why we wanted to premiere this documentary now, as we're starting to think about that, instead of in the middle of the winter when we're mostly thinking about blizzards and how cold temperatures can get here and winter storms. Now shifting our mindset to have those plans in place if you are under the threat for severe thunderstorms and tornadoes. We're approaching that season, and this documentary is not meant to scare you. It's just meant to prepare you in a sense for what we saw last year and what Mother Nature is capable of producing here in North Dakota, and to also document all of what happened last year.
Well, I'm excited to watch again tonight. Summer of Tornadoes premiering right here, KFYR Plus, 6:30. I do not want to see next summer at this time. Summer of Tornadoes 2, back for more.
That would be bad.
I don't want to see that,
Nope.
Jacob. Okay.
This is it. This is the documentary.
You weren't influenced by Sharknado or anything of those movies. Do you remember those movies?
Yeah.
Those were, okay, the first one was funny.
Sure.
I thought that was funny.
Now we have all the memes about it.
Now
online,
it's just we're on the 15th iteration of these Sharknadoes. But okay, so we'll watch it tonight. Summer of Tornadoes, 6:30 here on KFYR Plus. Jacob, great job. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it tonight, and
appreciate it.
Best of luck. We'll be counting your Emmy Awards after this.
Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
I know. I give Jacob a hard time. All right. Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you, guys.